Welcome to the Excellent International Leadership. I'm your host, Dr. Katrina Berhus, and today we have a very special guest, Mr. Tom Golisano. I don't know if I said that correctly. Okay. So it's to talk about your new book, The Italian Kid Did It, how you turned $3,000 into $44 billion and achieved the American dream. So tell us a little bit about your Italian education. Why the Italian kid?
Well, there is a double meaning. When I was 15 years old and living in suburban Rochester, New York, a kitty corner from my house was a car dealer. And one night on a Friday night, somebody took one of his new cars for a ride. In fact, I think they actually kept it overnight. The next morning, I had the police come to my house. And they took me outside and said to me that somebody had taken the car and that the owner of the car said the Italian kid across the street did it. And that's the double meaning.
I see.
Obviously, I had a good alibi. I didn't take the car.
Right.
But it stayed with me. It was sort of a voice from the past of the 1950s and 60s in upstate New York. It wasn't unusual for a person to say something like that.
So how did it affect you personally?
Well, it irritated me, obviously. The fact that he accused me of taking his car and then the way he did it to the police, accusing me of being, and I was, of course, Italian. So it stayed with me a long time. I never forgot it. And when I got around to writing this book and decided that we have to have a title for it, I thought the double meaning of the Italian kid did it was very appropriate.
And it's also about the American dream. So for the skeptics that don't believe there really is any more the American dreams, what would you say?
I would say they are dead wrong. Today, because of technology and other changes, there is so much opportunity. And it's just, you've got to find it. You've got to look for it. But I'll tell you, there are a lot of opportunities out there. I also, on a part-time basis, do venture capital investments. And we have no short supply of companies or people coming to us looking for venture capital because they have a new idea or a new concept and they want to start a business. I think it's everywhere in this country and the opportunities are still great, if not greater than before.
And what is it about the American dream that is highly motivating that you don't find so much in another country?
Well, I think it appears in this country because the opportunity is there. What's motivating about it? Well, there's a lot of things. Obviously, money is a great motivator. Secondly, the ability to pick who you work with and when you work with them. Secondly, or thirdly, how much time you want to get away from the office or stay in the office. I mean, that type of freedom is very important. And the idea or the concept of doing something creative and having a product or a service that people want and need. Those things are all great motivators as far as I'm concerned.
And so tell us a little bit, because you founded Paychex, what were the conditions at that time that allowed you to start it and then thrive?
Well, I don't know if the conditions were great at the time. When I started the company, I had $3,000 in my bank account. I was hoping that I'd sell enough clients from a direct mail campaign to support myself. And that number was about 60 clients. In the first 3 months, I sold 6 clients. Okay, so it was a very difficult time for the next 2 or 3 years. I actually went 4 years without getting a paycheck. Fortunately, my spouse at the time was working, and that made a great deal of help. Also, I had some friends that used to come by and buy me lunch and buy me dinner and that type of thing. I borrowed as much money as I could from banks and from some relatives. Eventually, of course, they got it all paid back. But it was tough. It was a tough 4 years. But after that 4 years, and I reached actually a client base of 300 clients in Rochester, New York, I was doing okay. And then a friend of mine who worked together with me in another company came into my door one day and said, "Looks like Paychex is going to make it. Can I get involved?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He says, "Well, can we start one in another city?" And what ended up that he and I started one in Buffalo, Syracuse, and Albany, all in upstate New York, and we went partners. A few months later, an employee of a client came in the door to pick up his payroll, and he was telling me how much he loved the service, and he'd like to move to another part of the country and start a similar service. And I said, well, Chuck, I think I could be your partner. His name was Chuck. And he says, well, I want to be your franchisee, not your partner. I thought about that concept for a while and decided, well, let's give that a try. He moved down to Miami, Florida, and opened up a similar operation. After I got those two people going, I decided it might be a good idea in order to build a national organization to do it through partnerships and franchises. So for the next 5 years, I ended up with 10 partners and 6 franchisees. And all of them but one lived in Rochester, New York, and moved to another city in the United States somewhere. We operated that way for 5 years. Then we got the great idea, let's consolidate into one company, really grow the sales force, really focus on profitability after that, and then either sell the company or take it public. And after 5 years, we decided the right route was to make it a public company because we thought there was tremendous growth. You know, there's millions and millions of small businesses in the United States, which is the market we serve. So we went public. Our market value in 1983 when we went public was 65 million. And today it's in the 40s of billions.
So it sounds so easy when you say it that way, but what were some of the challenges you had in the growth process? That's one question. And the other thing is you needed to develop leadership for people to be entrepreneurs and take it to the next level as well.
Well, that was one of the great challenges that I had. Before we consolidated into one company, I had these 16 individuals who we operated more like friends or a fraternity. Okay, but when we decided to consolidate, now there was new challenges. We needed to have different assignment of territories or responsibilities. We needed to have management reports. One of the reasons we wanted to consolidate is for eventual liquidity because we had none at that point. So bringing those people together and having them operate. Oh, and I had to promote some of them. Of the 16, I had to promote, 5 of them over the other 11. And before they were golfing buddies, and now they were boss and subordinate.
That's a challenge.
So, and also, and don't underestimate this one. Before they had on their business card, they were the president, say, of the Paychex office in Cincinnati. But now it said they were branch manager. And that was a real mental thing for them to overcome. So those were the types of challenges. We also borrowed a lot of money to expand our sales force. And we had to go 6 months, I think it was, without getting paid so that we could keep our cash under control. But we did it and ended up coming out for the best. Of course, the thing that always drove us is such an open market. So many small businesses in America that can use our services. And today we have over 700,000 companies that use the Paychex service, either the payroll processing or HR products, human resource products.
Now you've gotten so big and so wide. So what's the next step?
Well, the next step, I guess the next step is I've had another venture. It was called Safe Site. It was records management, offsite records management, recurring type of revenue business. And I ended up with about 9 partners in 15 cities. And we eventually consolidated. But with that one, we actually sold the company to a company called Iron Mountain, of which I became a board member for a number of years. So that was another thing that happened. And now most recently, as I mentioned before, I do make investments in small venture capital situations. And that's gone really well for us.
Excellent. So we'll come back to the Italian kid. What do you think is some of your background that has helped you through your business journey?
Well, I think some people would admit that turmoil or difficult situations have a great effect on your life. And I think that applies to me too. And I don't mean to get people to feel sorry for me, but when my sister was 15 years old, she lost her right hand working in a meat section at a supermarket. I had a brother that was 21 years old, got killed in the Korean War. I had a son who was born with developmental disabilities. And one of my motivations in life was to make sure I had enough resources, money, if you will, to make sure that he was well taken care of, because he could never take care of himself. So there was those types of things, plus watching my father. My father was, when I was 16 years old, my father went through bankruptcy. And that was a very tough time. You know, you watch the guy come and get the car and almost losing the house. So there were some real moments in my background, I think, drove me not to ever get put in those positions again.
And also, as you mentioned, you have your last name, Golisano Foundation, and you're a big donor for the Special Olympics. Tell us how you came to that point.
Well, as I said, my son is developmentally disabled, and he participated in the Special Olympics.
Oh, really?
Oh, sure. And it meant a lot to him. It was quite important to him at the time. And one day I was in New York City, and I happened to meet Timothy Shriver. Tim Shriver is the son of Eunice Shriver, who started the Special Olympics. And Tim kind of cornered me for an appointment to make a presentation to me as to why I should help the Special Olympics. And he came to Rochester to see me, and we had the appointment. And I really believed in what he was saying and what he planned to do with the funds, so forth. So I became a philanthropist towards the Special Olympics. And then that's grown over the years. There's been 2 or 3 other events where I've made big contributions to the Special Olympics.
Well, wonderful. And I thank you on all of their behalfs as well. So let's go back to your book, The Italian Kid Did It. What motivated you that you write this? Because you've written other books. Why this one?
It's true. I wrote another book called Built Not Born, which has to do with running a small business. It was sort of a small business person's guide. I wrote The Italian Kid Did It because a lot of people were urging me to write the story because it not only included paychecks, but it included owning the Buffalo Sabres hockey team. It included other business ventures. It included the philanthropy and so forth. And also my 3 Independence Party runs for governor of New York. So that's illustrated throughout through the book. So all of those things, people just encouraging me. And I got such a good response from Built Not Born, the first book, I decided I would do the second one. And it's interesting. The first book only took me about 6 weeks. You know, it was information very close to what I was doing every day. Mm-hmm. The Italian Kid Did It took about 4 or 5 months because there was a lot of detail in it, a lot of history in it. So that took a lot longer time.
And what was the personal experience? What did you get out of it? It's like a catharsis of writing a book like that or not?
Oh, it gives you a lot of personal satisfaction because, you know, some copies have sold. It made one of the bestseller lists, I think, the Wall Street Journal. And I get letters almost every week from people or phone calls saying they read the book, especially Built Not Born, and got such good ideas out of it. And they're trying to run their business using that as a basic principle. That's very satisfying to me. And so it made me very glad I did it. It's interesting. I started the autobiography first, showed the publisher the first 6 chapters, and he said to me, "Why don't you write a business book instead?" And I said, "Well, what will I write about?" While I'm talking, I did the table of contents right on my desk while I was talking to the
Wow,
That's
great.
how easy it sort of came to me. So that was a lot of fun. It was easy. The other book was a little more difficult, hard work, but it certainly paid off.
All right. So I'm going to ask you about your sport. You managed the Buffalo Sabres hockey franchise.
And I didn't manage it. I owned it.
You founded it. Thank you for the correction. And you made it into the best run sport franchise in professional sports by ESPN, ahead of 122 major professional sport teams in the US. Tell us about that. What did you do to make it very special and well run?
When we bought the team, we had 5,500 season tickets in a stadium that holds 19,000 people. So consequently, it was a money loser. We turned the team around from being a mediocre or losing team to a winning team. and we made playoffs almost every year. We won the President's Cup one year, which is the team that won the most number of games. But I think the ESPN honor was basically based on the fact that we turned it around financially. It was losing a lot of money, and by the time we had it for 3 or 4 years, it was now a money maker. And that's very unusual in professional sports. And we also enhanced our season ticket holders from 5,500 to 16,000, plus a waiting list.
Okay, Tom, just tell us a little bit more. How did you do that? Because yes, you did it, we know, but if somebody else were trying to take a team and make it, operationally very efficient, what advice would you give?
Well, first of all, we were very creative. We did things like priced our tickets in a way that were competitive. We priced some games so that it costs less money for a family to come to a game, which also brought in a lot of fans. We managed the financial statements professionally. We kept our payroll in order. We also got a break in that the league started a revenue sharing program, which we were benefiting of because we were a smaller market. I think the biggest thing we did, though, was I had some good people working for the team, the general manager, both, and the vice president of administration and so forth. They were good people, and they knew how to do the job. And I let them do the job. Got my nose in their way once in a while, but they did it, and they did it well. And that was the reason.
Excellent. So I'm going to ask you another question about one of your activities. How would you address the crisis leadership situation in the political system? Ooh, I know. I know. We can take it out if you want.
Well, do you have an hour and a half? We could talk about this subject for a long time. I just wish our people in those responsible governmental positions would try working together for once instead of working against each other. Everything is a competition between the two parties, and it's not doing the country any good, not at all. The lack of cooperation, the lack of understanding, the lack of mutual respect are all gone, it seems like, and we have chaos. What would I do about it? I'll tell you one thing I'd like to do about it, and this is on the light side. I'd like to take the US Congress, fill the aisle up with concrete, and put the senators in the House of Representatives in alphabetical order. So they have to make friends with the guy next to them instead of Republicans on one side of the building, and Democrats on the other side, and never the twain shall meet. Now, it sounds kind of stupid, doesn't it? But but getting rid of that aisle, I think, would be a big help.
Yes, I think so. That would be definitely. Anyway, thank you for answering that question. So I wanted to ask if someone were to read your book, because what would they get out on? What would their learning be? What would their takeaways be?
The autobiography?
Yes.
Yeah, a good book. Well, first of all, I'd like to think they were entertained. Secondly, I would like to feel that they learned something from it. Okay. And third, I think it would be great if it motivated people to maybe try a little harder, be a little more creative, work a little smarter. That would make me very, very happy, those three things.
Wonderful. And where can they get a hold of this book?
Well, I think most of the bookstores are carrying it. If not, you can always do it through Amazon. They sell the book and they inventory it. So that's probably the easiest way.
Well, thank you very much for your time and sharing your knowledge. And I really recommend all the listeners to buy the book. It is great entertainment and so knowledgeable. So thank you, Tom.
I appreciate the comments. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.